Sports Radio.
Here comes the siren. I want to go higher. Oh, my goodness. Coaching will defend. Oh! LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal.
Oh, baby, for sure.
Cabin Sports Radio starts now.
Welcome to Cabin Sports Radio, brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward, coming at you on another Monday night here at Cabin Radio Studios. My name is Lecter. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Unbreakable, Mike Gibbons, as we embark on another hour of sports chat, looking back at the week that was and maybe even talking about some future stuff. A lot to talk about this week, Mike.
Yeah, lots to digest. Lots in the sporting world this time of year. Pretty good. NFL playoffs obviously in full swing. We are a week and a half into the NHL season now. We're pretty steady into the NBA season. MLB off season. We haven't talked baseball in a while, but obviously a big deal last week. So mixed martial arts, you name it. We're going to try to cram it into 1 hour of sports talk.
It's one of those when it rains it pours type situations.
Seriously.
I think. Yeah, it's all coming at us at once. But let's waste no time and get into it with your CSR sports headlines.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will face the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 55 after winning their respective conferences this weekend. Tampa beat Green Bay 31-26 to punch their first ticket to the big game since 2002 when they won it all. In the AFC, Kansas City outgunned Buffalo 38-24 to advance to their second straight title game. Super Bowl 55 will be played in Tampa Bay on February 7th.
Our good friend Jesse Wheeler threw an incredible stat at me this morning. I'm not sure where he saw it. I'm not sure if you may have seen the same stat.
Okay.
But something to the effect of Tom Brady has gone to the Super Bowl. He's appeared in the Super Bowl game in 10 of the 21 seasons that he has played.
Yeah.
Or at least will. I think this might be his 10th.
This will be his 10th appearance, yeah.
Yeah. So he has appeared in like just shy of 50%.
Yes.
So like 47, I think the math works out to, something like that.
I think I saw the same graphic.
Okay. And they compared it to Steph Curry's
Yes.
3-point shooting percentage.
So, yes, Tom Brady is more likely to make a Super Bowl appearance than Steph Curry is, the greatest shooter in NBA history. He just passed Reggie Miller, I think, on the all-time 3-point scored list. So the only person standing in front of him now is Jesus Shuttlesworth, Ray Allen. 2,900 and some odd 3-point field goals made. Steph Curry, in a fraction of the games played, is about 400 behind him. He, of course, had that season where I think he made 392 three-pointers in one season, which we'll see if that ever it gets broken. But yeah, the greatest shooter in NBA history is less likely to make a three than Tom Brady is to advance to the Super Bowl, which is just insane.
Okay, hold on before we go any further. Jesus Shuttlesworth?
Yeah, that's his nickname.
What?
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, Jesus Shuttlesworth. It might be one of those.
Where did that come from?
It might be a self-proclaimed thing, you know. Michael Jordan famously referred to himself as Black Jesus. I think I was reading.
Oh, really?
There was a trash-talking game. I think it was between him and Reggie Miller. It would have been when Jordan was in his earlier years, so probably the early 90s. And I think Reggie, actually maybe in the late 80s, when he was just sort of getting familiar in the league. I think Reggie Miller had a really good half. He outscored him 10-4, something like that. Started trash talking. You don't do that to MJ. So then I think he held him to 2 points in the second half and dropped 30 on him or something like that. And then he said, "You don't talk to Black Jesus like that." So there are a couple. You know, that another self-proclaimed nickname that probably just came organically, sporadically at the time, and he just threw it out there. But so Ray Allen is the only person standing in front of Steph Curry right now for all-time 3-point field goals made, but still less likely than Tom Brady is to not appear in the Super Bowl. That's how good he is. He's been there. This will be his 10th time, 6-3 so far, going for number 7.
Yeah, okay, we got Jesus Shuttlesworth out of the way.
Yep.
We can continue with the program.
I wish I had a concrete answer for you, but I don't think I actually do.
God, you can't just drop that
I'm sorry.
on someone who is, completely ignorant about the situation. That's incredible, though. But yes, on to the NFC and AFC conference championships. Man, just, I didn't catch the Bills Kansas City Chiefs game. Of course, I'm sure a lot of your friends upset about the fact that the Buffalo Bills will not be appearing in the Super Bowl. But I mean, a pretty good run.
Totally.
Just kind of the same way that we felt last week. We could probably predict how things were going to go when the Kansas City Chiefs faced the Cleveland Browns and ended their miracle run. The Buffalo Bills had a fantastic season. They have a great team, and they're going to continue to have a great team going forward. So there's obviously lots to be optimistic for in Bills Nation. Is that what they call themselves?
Bills Mafia. That's the fan base is referred to as the Mafia.
Right.
But yeah, of course, a really great season. Nothing to hang your head about if you're a Buffalo Bills fan or a part of the organization. A really good run. What did they go? 13-3 or 12-4 over the course of the regular season. So a really, really good run. Josh Allen had a breakout year. He but was stifled a little bit, and that's. It's so easy to talk about the firepower of teams like Kansas City and even Tampa Bay, but their secondary, nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of attention paid to just how sticky their coverage was last night, especially on Diggs for Buffalo and the Roots. They ran them, but I mean the secondary was really tight. It was hard to find gaps. So, but then of course on the other side of the ball, you've got the most elite offense in the game. So I think even when they went down 9-0, I don't think any alarm bells were going off in KC.
No.
Last year, I think in all 3 of their playoff games, divisional round, conference round, even in the Super Bowl, they went down pretty significantly. Double digits in most of them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter. I think even going into the second half of the Super Bowl, they were down double digits to the 49ers. And there's really no cause for concern ever when you've got
You can
Patrick
never count
Mahomes.
them out.
No. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, pick your poison. They're gonna hurt you in a lot of different ways. And I know it's nice to get all these storylines out there, and there always are intriguing storylines before matchups like this. But at the end of the day, they've got an absolute juggernaut of an offense, and how do you slow it down?
It's almost as though coming into games, the Kansas City Chiefs strategy is just like, let's try to win this conservatively. If we can just put the other team to sleep, put anyone watching to sleep, and just win a nice tidy game, who cares? At the end of the day, we win the game. We take as few risks as possible, and if that's enough to get it done, then great, that gets the job done. If it's not, and we find ourselves behind, that is not, the conservative approach is not getting the job done. Well, we've got the weapons to light it up should we decide to do that. And when your back's against the wall, and it's either you open it up or you let the game slip away.
Yeah,
it's scary thinking about being a team that is on top of the Kansas City Chiefs and knowing that they have that arsenal. That it's like we're in a good position now, but they're just getting started.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna open it up. We're gonna have to hold this team off, and they're just gonna be going through the air.
Yeah,
Patrick Mahomes is gonna be his coach is basically gonna say, just do it. Just get the job done. And it's scary when you think of a guy with that much talent who is just basically being handed the keys to the mansion.
Right.
Go ahead, win us the game. And you almost get the sense that that's kind of what goes on here.
Yeah.
Like they kind of lull their opposition to sleep almost.
If you're a betting person, and I have been known to dabble in it a little bit here and there, it's almost worth doing it at the end of the first quarter or something.
Yeah.
After the Chiefs go down double digits and the spread's a little bit more in your favor, and that's when you commit to it, because that's just how they seem to roll. They never get phased. Their offense alone will never allow them to be out of a game. So much for some health questions about Mahomes heading in. He, of course, was cleared earlier in the week, and we knew he would play regardless. Didn't look at all phased whatsoever. No. Just it's really crazy to think that at the age of 25, the composure and the skill and how he's able to marry that, and almost plays with like a sense of swagger as well. Yeah. But just the weapons around him just make them so tough to guard. So it really doesn't matter what score they end up going down, because they're in any single game as long as they can roll out that offense. And if their secondary is going to play as well as it did against the Bills, who went up 9-0 and then weren't able to score again until late, and the Bills did make it fairly interesting with a couple late turnovers, but weren't able to capitalize even after getting an onside kick. I think it was the first successful onside kick since 2014 or something like that. And it looked like momentum was really turning. They were a score. They were within two possessions anyways, but weren't able to capitalize when it mattered most. And that's credit to the Chiefs defense, but it's their offense that's going to win them games. I think really a testament to their greatness after winning it all last year, and then essentially going 14-1, and then the second loss they suffered was with most of their secondary players in. They didn't have a full lineup. I think their one loss, though, and I mean, if the Buccaneers are going to be successful in 2 weeks' time, was if it's going to be an absolute showdown, an offensive run and gun, just shootout, because that's really the only way you can beat them, because their offense is so good. Can you put up more points than them?
Yeah. Which I don't know if I want to enter into that matchup either, which is the tough thing. But yeah, I mean, like we said right off the top, lots to look forward to. There's nothing for the Buffalo Bills organization to hang their heads over. An incredible season, huge step forward for Josh Allen. He is a legit number one quarterback, and beyond anything else, established that this season. There is a ton of reason for optimism for the Buffalo Bills. On the other hand, the NFC, the Green Bay Packers have to be nothing but disappointed after dropping their game to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's always something to be said about getting beaten by the best, and we often refer to Tom Brady as the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Aaron Rodgers, I think, was trying to, late in his career, late in the game, try to make one more step towards putting himself in, not necessarily in that position, but like is establishing himself as one of the greatest of all time. If he's going to do that, he's going to need to add another championship to his career. He's got one so far, and one of the things about Aaron Rodgers has always been that he's one of his greatest qualities has been that he comes up big in crunch time. Clutch performances, clutch plays. That has kind of been the story of Aaron Rodgers throughout most of his career. Not the case last night. He had opportunities to get the Green Bay Packers back into that game, back into the lead for the majority of the fourth quarter. Tom Brady was picked off 3 times.
I think so, yeah.
He gave them all kinds of opportunities to get back into that game and get into the lead. The last one, just like an ugly interception, like throwing off his back foot, like the kind of stuff you would expect a 21-year veteran just to not do. But nevertheless, they gave them those opportunities, and Aaron Rodgers drove Green Bay down. And this is the play that's been mostly talked about to about, I think, like within the 10 of the Bucs. Scrambled out of the pocket, had room to run, maybe would have taken a shot, but probably it looked like he could have made it into the end zone. Elected to throw what would have been a real tough reception. It fell incomplete. And in the end, the Packers didn't get it done. And you got to think where, on one hand, the Buffalo Bills, they lose. They don't get the opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, but they've got nothing but but good things ahead.
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers is 37 years old, and even said himself in a post-game interview, he's not really sure about what his future is with the Green Bay Packers. Yeah, a little bit cryptic. He's still under contract for next season. But it's so interesting that in essentially the same situation, how perspectives can be so completely opposite. So, I mean, if you're a Green Bay fan, you're kind of, you hurt after the loss, obviously, but then hearing your longtime starting quarterback, who's, still, probably will still be the NFL MVP for this season. So still riding high, near the top of his game. To hear him say something like that, that's tough.
And that was definitely one of the stories going into this weekend is the excellence at the quarterback position for all four teams. Really good matchups all around. Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, and then, of course, Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers. Two sort of more so at the tail end of their career, two featured we expect to be promising for years to come. Josh Allen in Buffalo, and then, of course, Patrick Mahomes, who now has a chance to win his second straight Super Bowl at the age of 25. You wouldn't think he was 25 by watching him play with the composure, the IQ, and just the skill that he possesses pretty naturally. But some questions now heading into the offseason. They're like you said, some pretty cryptic quotes coming from their leader and front runner for MVP in Aaron Rodgers, and that one's got a sting. Again, coming on top of the NFC throughout the course of the regular season, and get as far as another championship game, only to be stopped short by arguably the greatest to ever do it. So, nothing to sneeze at there. Losing to Tom Brady is nothing to be overly upset about because it's happened to a lot of people.
It's happened to a lot of people
over the course of their career. So we'll see what the offseason brings for Green Bay. They would have liked to have won that game. Probably were a lot of people's favorite. But at the end of the day, how do you go against Tom Brady? Fun fact, it's going to be a great matchup regardless in 2 weeks. It's going to be electric with one of the best to ever do it, if not the absolute best to ever do it, and one of the most promising, if not the most promising players in the game in Patrick Mahomes, and someone who could really be the successor to Tom Brady. But it not only is it an electric matchup, it'll be the first time ever that a team actually hosts the Super Bowl, which seems pretty crazy because, of course, they switch up the venue every year. Mm-hmm. But this will be the first time that one of the two teams competing in the Super Bowl will be the host city. So Tampa Bay is going to be pretty crazy in 2 weeks. Yeah. As if we needed to add anything else to this already fantastic storyline. It should be an absolute barn burner. I would think.
I definitely thought you were headed for it, as if Florida needed to be any crazier type of joke.
Right? Yeah, it's something like that. What a great couple of months, though, right? You got the Tampa Bay Lightning winning the Stanley Cup. Tampa Bay Rays coming so close in the World Series this past year, but ultimately falling short to the Dodgers, another winning city with the Dodgers and the Lakers. So let's see if Tampa Bay can capture one more professional championship.
Yeah, so 2 weeks until Super Bowl 55 in Tampa Bay. I mean, I don't really... It's hard to really look at this as a home field advantage type of thing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, the crowd, if there is a crowd, will obviously be limited.
Yep.
So that doesn't really factor in. Yeah, you kind of got your familiar, comfortable surroundings as opposed to the Kansas City Chiefs, but I don't see that phasing the Kansas City Chiefs all that much. So it'll be interesting to see if that factors in at all. But I don't anticipate that really factoring into the game. What I'm more interested in is to see what the NFL does do with regards to creating that Super Bowl atmosphere.
Right.
Obviously, it's not going to be the same as it was in previous years, and that, like, Super Bowl 54 was really the last big event that happened before the COVID-19 pandemic changed everything as we know it. So it'll be interesting to see if the NFL has some big plans to make this make it feel more like a Super Bowl, which as we know is like, so far beyond the game. It's just an electric atmosphere.
Right.
Everything right from the 2-week lead up, all of the the press is just crazy for that whole 2 weeks. It'll be really interesting to see. I know you're not a big pro wrestling fan, but one of the things that actually the NBA was doing this, they had the screens of people watching virtually. Yep. I have to imagine the NFL is thinking something along those lines. Yeah, like, you can't just have canvassed off, bleachers,
right?
And that you got like with the amount of money that the NFL has and brings in every year for the Super Bowl, you got to think that they got to be planning a spectacle.
I think it was during the second game last night, so it would have been the Chiefs and Bills game. They did announce the attendance, and I want to say it was around 17,000, which
is still crazy.
But that's in a venue that would typically
like
host like 50 to 70. Some of those huge football stadiums. So a fraction of what they're used to seeing. But they said last night, it sounds like there are 17,000 people in here, but it sounds like there's 70. And that was when the Chiefs, of course, were making their way to their second straight Super Bowl appearance. So the atmosphere was pretty electric. So I'm imagining it'd be around that capacity again. You would think. For a Super Bowl, but how it's such a marketed and branded event. When the game gets underway, it doesn't really change all that much. Right. They're pros behind the scenes doing the broadcast, so it feels like a pretty regular game. But it's everything in between, right? So what are the viewership levels like right now, for instance? Is that going to entice brands to pay as much as they normally would to get a 30-second spot or a 1-minute spot? So are we going to see the same level of advertising that we have before? You mentioned Media Week, which is always an absolute frenzy before the big game. I don't even think the Chiefs are allowed to physically travel to Tampa Bay until like 2 days before the game itself.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be really interesting. I actually haven't been paying attention, so I don't know what we have in store for a halftime show. But that's, of course, like last year was J-Lo and Shakira, I think it was.
Yep.
Huge, very successful halftime performance. So it's that whole experience about, in between and before and after, how do you really make it feel like a Super Bowl? That would be pretty interesting to see. And we'll see what they have in store in 2 weeks' time. But when the game does get underway, it feels like a pretty regular game. It's just, how do they package it otherwise?
I hadn't heard that about the travel schedule for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, that alone, right off the bat, that's a home field advantage for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, 2 days, normally you're there for like 2 weeks, you're settled in. There's no possibility of any type of like jet lag factoring into the game. But if you're only traveling 2 days before, like obviously still no excuses. You still got to perform, but that's a little tougher than being there for 2 weeks, figuring out your surroundings, having that you're being long past that when the actual game happens, and you can kind of just settle in, and it's kind of routine after you've been there for 2 weeks. So that'll be interesting. Super Bowl 55, February 7th in Tampa Bay. Very much looking forward to that. And let's shift gears to the MLB. A lot of Toronto Blue Jays fans looking forward to the 2021 season.
When was the last time we talked baseball? But we have to, because the Toronto Blue Jays made a big offseason splash last week by signing star outfielder George Springer to a 6-year, $150 million deal. The 31-year-old was widely considered to be the best free agent hitter and outfield on the market this season. Off-season, I should say. He joins a promising young Jays club after spending 7 years with Houston, where he was named an All-Star 3 times, won 2 Silver Slugger awards, and a World Series MVP in 2017.
Now, one can only hope that he's bringing some of those little tips and tricks he learned in Houston. How to bang the trash can with just the right sibilance to make sure that it's the right call. A slider as opposed to a curveball.
That's right.
Well, it's as we know, baseball is a very detail-oriented game.
Yep.
I can only imagine having someone from that Houston club will pay dividends for this young Blue Jays team.
I was waiting to see how long it would take you to jump on that. I knew it was coming. Of course, Altuve and Bregman were sort of the two that were at the front of the big ugly scandal.
Yeah.
The beating of trash can scandal and signaling pitches. But we will never know the extent to how much that was going on within their clubhouse.
Right.
But
and I have a feeling George Springer's not exactly going to bring it up.
No, it feels like a lifetime ago now, doesn't it? That was the big story, of course, last off season when we were, and it was around the time, of course, that the pandemic started to hit. So we shifted our attention away from that because that's the nature of our attention spans these days. They're pretty short, but how could we forget? So they went on to actually have a pretty successful year in Houston. I think they made it through the divisional round. Did they lose they must have been in the conference championships, but they did impress, and they had some doubters that they wanted to prove wrong. Altuve's numbers definitely took a dip, though. But for the Blue Jays, this is a really exciting deal. I think after the Vernon Wells extension, this is... Actually, I think it is the largest deal that the Toronto Blue Jays have ever committed to. So, and there were some concerns, and the wheel reached out as soon as it happened. He was obviously pretty excited, but he is 31 years old, and that's a lot of money to commit. But, look at that resume. World Series MVP on a really good Houston team. He shone the brightest when they won their title in 2017. 2 Silver Slugger awards for the best offensive player at his position. He's a star in the outfield, and he posts really good numbers hitting the ball. So he was widely regarded as the best free agent available in this offseason class. It's kind of exciting because you're hearing a lot of these really big names now linked to the Toronto Blue Jays, who, of course, have a really promising, albeit young, team right now. And suddenly their lineup, their batting order looks really, really good. Could have been even better last week because right after the signing was announced, fellow Astros slugger Michael Brantley was linked to the Jays as well. And there was a reported deal. And I'm sure the wheel told you about this because he was pretty upset. Those damn sports reporters, I think is what he said. There was a framework apparently in place. I think it would have been for 2 years. Can't remember the value. And it was written. He's coming to Toronto too. And Twitter was going crazy. The MLB world was going crazy. The Toronto Blue Jays in one day just won free agency after striking out on LeMahieu, who was also interested in coming to the Jays. There was an offer on the table. He ultimately re-signed with the Yankees. So it's just, even though the Brantley deal did ultimately fall through, he re-signs with the Astros for 2 years at $32 million. It's just exciting that these big name players are interested in coming to Toronto. Yeah. Now, they've got some depth at the center field position, so they can probably look to trade some of those assets. They're an infielder and a starting pitcher away, I think, from being really, really dangerous. On paper now, probably the best team in the AL East, and there are still some really big free agents out there, and some of them, including Trevor Bauer, pitcher, have been linked to the Jays. So it's just really promising that you have these big names that are attracted to a place like Toronto. And we're still weeks away from spring training beginning in late February. There's still a lot of time between now and April 1st when the season kicks off. So I'm sure the Jays have, if not one, maybe even a couple more big signings or deals to be had, and it should be a pretty fun year for the Toronto Blue Jays.
And not to knock the Toronto Blue Jays at all, it did kind of make me wonder, like, why is Toronto such an attractive option to 3 like big name free agents? Yeah, why? And you could just say why not, but this has never been necessarily a market where players are flocking to.
Yep.
You know, and the Blue Jays had a championship or potential championship window in like 2013, 2014, 2015.
Yep.
Kind of in there. They almost made it to the World Series, just fell short. And there hasn't been really much buzz around the team in the couple of years following that. Now, they've had some buzz within the organization, within the fan base, because they've done a really good job drafting and developing some young talent, which is obviously, there's always reason for optimism when you're able to do that. But it strikes me as like a little bit odd that, you know, players of this caliber would necessarily care about that, especially when considering that this February spring training, like, probably not a lot will have changed with regards to the COVID-19 pandemic, which means the Toronto Blue Jays will probably be playing out of somewhere in Florida.
Yeah,
I'm gonna guess.
So spring training in Dunedin, where they usually do it. We're housed in Buffalo last year. So I actually, I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but that was a concern for some free agents who were in discussion with the Toronto Blue Jays. Is what's the home field situation going to be first? Obviously not allowed to play in Toronto for the time being, with the border being closed. So that becomes an immediate concern. It's like, well, where are we actually playing? I understand that I'm part of this organization. Where will I be based for the upcoming season beyond potentially? So that, I think, was a pretty legitimate concern that might have turned off some potential free agents. But that's in the course of the last two seasons, two really big free agent acquisitions. The other, of course, being Ryu. They got their ace last year. Now they get Springer, and they've been linked to other free agents. Trevor Bauer, DJ LeMahieu, who did re-sign with the Yankees. And it's like you said, it's because of the development from within, already boasting a really strong batting order with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Biggio, and all homegrown. So all drafting that the club has done on its own. Always had one of the stronger farm systems,
right?
But like you said, a couple of years ago, especially, they had the number one prospect in all of baseball in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Had his struggles and has continued to have his struggles. But within the right setting, can turn that around, and now suddenly the Toronto Blue Jays are going to boast a really strong lineup come opening day, and have some depth now at the center field position. So maybe Grichuk ends up forming some type of package, and the Jays are able to get something to further boast their starting rotation, and then maybe even their infield, and then could be really, really dangerous come opening day and contend in the AL East and maybe even beyond. So looking pretty good all of a sudden if you're a Toronto Blue Jays fan, and some room to improve. And I think management will address it in the next 2 months.
It's exciting and crucial in the Toronto pro sports landscape because, if the Raptors are going to have a bit of a step back year, the Leafs are a wild card any given year. So it's nice to see that the Toronto Blue Jays are perhaps establishing themselves as the next Toronto pro sports team to actually pay attention to. So let's move on to the NHL. Big blockbuster trade. Haven't had one of those in a while.
A rare mid-season blockbuster involving one of your clubs. Two NHL teams with disgruntled superstars completed a significant blockbuster trade last week. The Winnipeg Jets sent star winger Patrick Laine and center Jack Roslovic to the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for star center Pierre-Luc Dubois and a third-round pick in 2022. All three players involved in the deal had requested trades before the start of the season. The transaction provides the Blue Jackets with some elite scoring at the wing position and gives the Jets some much-needed depth at center.
Yeah, so pretty interesting trade. At first face value, I think most Winnipeg Jets fans were just hoping that, somewhere along the line, Patrick Laine would change his mind.
Right.
They're just kind of hoping that it would all work out. There's been rumors for months and months and months that from the Winnipeg Jets camp, that's really all you've ever heard about is the latest rumors on Patrick Laine. Nothing came to fruition. This season started. He had a great first game, 2 goals and an assist.
Yeah, game winner.
Looked like an absolute beast. Got dinged up in the next game and or possibly in that same game and hasn't played since. But with how well he played in that first game, I think that was another kind of like tease for Winnipeg Jets fans, thinking like, well, is he like, he doesn't need to impress anyone. If he's playing like this, it must mean that he cares and he wants to stay with the club. Nevertheless, I'm sure that Kevin Cheveldayoff was working behind the scenes the entire time to make a deal happen, which he obviously found. Now with the Columbus Blue Jackets and Pierre-Luc Dubois coming back the other way, definitely hurts anytime you lose any player with 50-goal potential.
Yep.
And Patrick Laine, without question, is one of the premier goal scorers, pure goal scorers in the NHL. It hurts to see a player like that go anytime. But they do fill some needs with Pierre-Luc Dubois coming back the other way. As you may recall, a couple weeks ago, Brian Little was kind of a trick answer on one of our quizzes.
That's right.
And it's because he is still technically on the Winnipeg Jets roster. He's probably still on their payroll, but they don't know for sure if he's ever going to play another NHL game because he had like really bad ear trauma. He took a puck to the ear last season and has not played a game since. And there are very big questions about Brian Little's future. So obviously they brought in Paul Stastny in the offseason, which was a good pickup for the Winnipeg Jets. But I think there was still some thought that if we can solidify that center position, if we can not only replace, but even upgrade on Brian Little, then that would be a very positive thing for the organization. And I think they filled exactly that gap with bringing in Pierre-Luc Dubois. I did see a pretty funny meme kind of talking about the trade, though, where Pierre-Luc Dubois, same situation in Columbus, asked for a trade before the start of the season. Apparently didn't like playing under John Tortorella.
Shocker.
We've heard that before. Yeah. But yes, it was Pierre-Luc Dubois asks for a trade out of Columbus, gets traded to Canadian Ohio.
Yeah.
Patrick Laine asked for a trade out of Winnipeg, gets traded to America, Manitoba. Or something like that. It's like, I mean, I don't know if the destinations are necessarily what either player had in mind.
Right.
But when I kind of break down this trade overall, in my mind, I think it's about even, which sounds strange to say because Jack Roslovic is the other piece going from Winnipeg. He's a former first-round pick of the Winnipeg Jets. I don't know that he certainly hasn't to this point, and I don't know that he's going to develop into the player that they thought he was or hoped that he would. Basically meaning that he's going to be slotted in as a third, ideally second line center. And now I don't know if he's the type of player that is going to take his game to the next level where you can rely on him to be a consistent enough scorer that he can play a second line role. And but at the same time, if you put him in the bottom six, I don't know that he's ever going to develop into being a responsible enough player to be that third line, fourth line grind guy that you put up, against like other teams' best players. You can't put him in that role. And I don't know that he's going to score enough to really earn having that top six role. So he's kind of in a weird limbo type position in his career right now that he's going to have to work through. Maybe the Columbus Blue Jackets have a better situation for him, but at the end of the day, it just sucks losing 50 goal potential.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that if you're in the Jets organization, you kind of have to swallow. But the one thing that did make him perhaps expendable is the depth that they have at the wing position, which is a huge asset for a team like Winnipeg. You still got Kyle Connor in the mix, Blake Wheeler, Kopp, Ehlers, Perreault. So that unfortunately made him a little expendable. It really is unfortunate giving up that, perennial. He's going to put up 40 goals for you. I think since entering the league, only 8 players have outpaced him in the goals department since he was drafted in 2016. Of course, the second overall pick in that draft, number 3, Pierre-Luc Dubois. More of a complete, well-rounded player, and will give them that much needed depth that they do need at center. Paul Stastny at this stage in his career isn't a second line center, so not an ideal one. So Pierre-Luc, that gives them now a really nice 1-2 punch with Scheifele and Pierre-Luc Dubois, and then a very serviceable center later in his career in Paul Stastny. So, if I'm going through winners and losers of this deal, I'm probably going off the board because some teams rather that kind of come to mind. Montreal, just because they had long been linked to Pierre-Luc Dubois. He had identified Montreal as his number one destination. They obviously had mutual interest in him, being of French-Canadian descent. That would have been just a natural pairing for them. So unfortunate that they miss out on him. And then I want to say the Blue Jackets, but not from a team standpoint, more so from an organizational culture standpoint. This is another big name player that has requested out of your market. Yeah. A team that's lost Duchesne, Panarin, Bobrovsky, now Pierre-Luc Dubois. And they've got building blocks, really nice ones in Werenski and Seth Jones, who have been more committed to the team. Mm-hmm. But this is another superstar caliber player that has requested out of the market. So that's got to hurt. But now, if you're Columbus and you're looking on the bright side, you're getting one of the best pure goal scorers in the game. When he's engaged, Patrick Laine can score 40 and has the potential, like you said, to hit 50. So maybe it is just a matter of new scenery for both of these players. They'll certainly get the chance, get the minutes. I'm very curious to see how Laine plays under John Tortorella. That is, I think, the biggest question mark of this whole deal. That will be a development worth keeping an eye on. But if I'm looking team for team, I think one thing I did see was it really necessary for the Jets to throw Roslovic into it? But like you said, on this roster, he was not going to crack the top 6 anyways. No. They're just too deep. They've got a great top 6, one of the best in all of hockey. And he, to this point, hadn't cracked it, and he might not have. So,
and he had requested a trade, too.
That's right. Yeah. So a change of scenery might be good for him, too.
Yeah, and it was the kind of thing where, if Patrick Laine requests a trade, well, there's quite a bit of clout that comes in that statement. If Jack Roslovic requests a trade, it's like, all right, well, we'll see what we can find for you. But he does get to go home and play in front of his home crowd in Columbus. So maybe we shall see him blossom there yet. Who knows? All we can say is if it was a coaching thing and not so much a surroundings thing, and you didn't like playing under Paul Maurice, I don't think things get a whole lot easier from here. But we'll talk a bit more about coaching and questionable coaching tactics in the second segment rather than doing the quiz. Yes, we're going to forego the quiz. I'm sorry. Didn't have a good one for you today. But we have much more to talk about next on Cabin Sports Radio.
The Cabin Sports Radio podcast, brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward.
Cabin Sports Radio brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward. For more on them, check out sportnorth.com. We thank them, as always, for being the proud sponsors of Cabin Sports Radio. I got a little excited, Michael. We missed one headline story. Why don't you let us know what that was?
Yeah, Saturday night, Dustin Poirier shocked the MMA world by earning a TKO victory over Irish superstar Conor McGregor in their highly anticipated lightweight bout. After coming out strong in the first, Poirier took down the former champ in the second with a series of leg kicks and strikes. McGregor has now lost 2 of his last 3 UFC bouts dating back to 2016.
But he's still a draw.
That's right. So this was obviously a huge win for Poirier, who avenged his previous loss to Conor McGregor. So they're 1-1 now. So he even said after the fight, do we have to have a rubber match now? It was weird seeing a humbled McGregor. His approach very different. The lead up to the fight, of course, his second last bout against Nurmagomedov, very different. Lots of back and forth.
Lots of nonsense.
Pretty ugly stuff. Before, during, and after the fight, of course, when that brawl broke out, stuff said about families. It got really bad. And he came under pretty heavy fire, McGregor did, for his attitude, how he approached the fight, things that were said, and if he had crossed the line or not. So it was weird to see a very humbled McGregor who showed the utmost respect for Poirier, and we now know why. He is as good as anyone in that lightweight division. Khabib, of course, still hanging on to the title, but he is quote-unquote retired following the death of his father, and has met with Dana White as recently as last week. So there was some buzz, some excitement that maybe they could work out a deal for him to return and fight some more in UFC. But White said afterwards, some of the content of that conversation was, listen, Dana, you and I both know I'm leagues above these guys. What is the incentive for me to come back and fight right now?
Right. Besides money.
Yeah.
Lots of money.
But feels he's got nothing to prove. So Saturday did kind of feel like a title fight, even though it wasn't, because Khabib is still retaining the title after beating Gaethje, who was the number one contender. So he slots back now. Poirier, in my mind, he's got to fight for the title now, if it's either vacated or on an interim basis. He's the guy, I think, in that division now. Michael Chandler also impressed with a win over Hooker on Saturday night. So Poirier versus Chandler, maybe, or Poirier versus Oliveira. That feels to me like that would be the next logical bout to determine the lightweight champ. But Poirier continues his ascent. One of the most complete and impressive resumes. He's fought everyone you can imagine in that division and earned wins over all of them now. So a really impressive win for him. And now what happens to Conor McGregor? So
yeah, you almost got to wonder, like you say, a bit of a quieter approach in the lead up to this fight.
I think he even donated to his charity.
Wow.
To Poirier's charity, a significant amount too, like $500,000. So it's weird seeing this new Conor McGregor, but
you got to wonder if it's just a situation where he's realizing that he's at the end of his fight career, and you got a lot of damage to try and undo with regards to your image, and everything action-wise that he had done, and with anything that he has said up to this point in his career, would lead you to believe that Conor McGregor does not care what anyone thinks about him. But maybe a little bit of maturity is coming into play here. Maybe, a little bit older, a little bit wiser. Maybe he's learned that if there is going to be any type of celebrity career after fighting mixed martial arts, and you would think that a guy like Conor McGregor, with the amount of money that he's made, you would think that you wouldn't have anything to worry about with regards to finances. But if that's not the case, if he has realized that you need to keep this sort of thing in mind, your character is certainly something that is either going to work for you or work against you in your post professional career. Maybe that's something that we're seeing now. Maybe we're seeing Conor McGregor waking up and doing a little bit of self-reflection and realizing, hey, I got to change my image, or else nobody is going to want to have anything to do with me. They're just going to want to pay money to see me get beaten up.
Yeah. So maybe
you can only do that for so long.
Maybe we see that Jake Paul fight after all, right? We saw him calling him out, saying some unpleasant things about Conor McGregor's wife, but it was weird. It was a humbled and defeated Conor McGregor afterwards, which we're not really used to seeing. Usually much more energetic. He's the one controlling the narrative because he has that clout, but maybe realizing as far as it goes in that division that he's not the top dog anymore.
Right.
He's barely hanging on to a top 5 position. Obviously, the loss to Khabib, the boxing loss, which we expected to Floyd Money Mayweather.
I mean, nobody lost in that bout.
No, yeah. Rumored bout against Pacquiao, but maybe if you are serious about MMA, let's focus on MMA right now instead of these taking on celebrity fights or boxing bouts. When your last win came against Donald Cerrone Cowboy, who's barely hanging on to a top 15 ranking in the welterweight division. Then we're going back, 4 years ago to his last, meaningful victory in an MMA match. So I think you're right. He's going to do some soul searching right now. It looks like that process has already begun. We're seeing a different fighter right now. But in terms of where he factors into that division, it gets a little murky now. He's going to take some bouts against some guys who aren't as high up on the totem pole anymore for him to reach relevance again. And for Poirier, it's he's heading in the complete opposite direction and seems poised to take the title. So it was a pretty significant Saturday night, and there will be ramifications coming out of this.
Well, and if you're Dana White, it poses a pretty interesting situation. What is the best way to handle Conor McGregor? Where should his position be now? Like, obviously he's still one of the biggest draws in the sport. He is always going to be one of the biggest draws. And so you would think it would be like kind of doing almost a bit of a disservice. You don't want to make Conor McGregor one of those gatekeeper type fighters where you put them up against younger fighters to kind of determine whether or not they are next level material. Right. I don't think Conor McGregor would accept that position. It just doesn't seem in his nature, in his character to allow himself to be used that way. I don't think he would have any interest in that. I think he is most interested in making as much money per fight as he can. It's what he's been very good at doing in his career, is marketing himself. So, and he's kind of cheated in a way at doing that, because out of 3 out of his last 4 fights, he's announced his retirement afterwards. That might have played that number up a little bit, but it seems like it's just like I was expecting to see an announcement. Conor McGregor announced his retirement because it's becoming a running gag with regards to with his career in the last few years. And so, he would inevitably come out of retirement and it'd be huge. And Conor McGregor's back and you can market it that way. You've kind of run out the tap on that.
Sport likes to do that more than the Ultimate Fighting Championship. No, feels like after every bout there's they grab the microphone and make the announcement. It's the theatrics of it, but it does get a little tired after a while.
And Conor McGregor's the one where you could put some very assured money on the fact that he was not actually going to stay retired, regardless of how many times you heard him say it. So what do you do if you're Dana White? Because now you can't put him in that top class anymore. You can't just hand him title fights anymore, because he's got to earn it the same as anyone else, regardless of whether or not he's still a draw as far as name goes. But you don't want to make him an exhibition type character. So it's an interesting situation. I assume that Dana White has had conversations with Conor McGregor about this sort of thing. Are you committed to remaining part of this Ultimate Fighting Championship roster, or are you just in it for yourself and just trying to cash in on a payday when it's convenient for you? It's an interesting situation, and I assume Dana White is doing a lot of thinking about that. What exactly to do with Conor McGregor? A guy who is not you can't put him in that elite class anymore, but he's still one of the most popular fighters of all time, without question. So with that, we make a very awkward transition to a couple things that came up this past week with regard. I guess it's not the most awkward transition we've ever made because it has to do with people saying questionable things. Yeah. Conor McGregor is no stranger to that. But this is in regards to, first off, let's start with the NBA. Shaquille O'Neal, NBA Hall of Famer without question, made a bizarre comment this past week.
MDE. Most dominant ever. Another self-proclaimed title that he gave himself. But that one's probably fair, actually. In his peak, he was absolutely unstoppable. Forms a really fun halftime panel now, of course, with Charles Barkley, Ernie, and Kenny Smith. They have a lot of fun. And actually, I love watching them. Yeah. Because 90% of the time, they're just making fun of each other. Right. And 10% of the time, they're talking about basketball. But it's great entertainment. But I don't know. And we've talked about this on this show before. There seems to just be this level of resentment from former greats about how much their respective sports have changed over the years, how they've become softer, how they've changed, how the games are called differently now. We hear that all the time about basketball, baseball, even. The theatrics in sports now. People aren't allowed to play the sport and have fun too. Yes. It's a sport. You're supposed to go there and kill the other team, and that's it. But we're seeing these superstar athletes now. The games are faster than ever before. Well-rounded athletes, and it's because of all the resources that are at their disposal now. But so some of these older guys are getting flack now because they're just hating. It's a level of hate towards the next generation of players and the direction that the games are going. And Shaq is kind of at the center of it right now for some really weird comments he made about Donovan Mitchell recently.
This is Shaq. I said tonight that you are one of my favorite players, but you don't have what it takes to get to the next level. I said it on purpose. I wanted you to hear it. What do you have to say about that?
All right. That's it.
That's it?
All right. That's it.
Okay, cool.
I mean,
I wanted you to hear it.
I've been hearing, Shaq, I've been hearing that since my rookie year. I'm just going to get better and do what I do.
Good.
At the end of the day.
Well, that's what I wanted you to hear you say.
Yes,
Love
sir.
your game, brother. Keep it up.
Appreciate it.
What do you got to say about that, Mike?
Well, on top of that being extremely awkward and uncomfortable, and you feel for Donovan Mitchell, it's also just flat out erroneous. When you so he's 24 years old. Donovan Mitchell is starting point guard for the Utah Jazz, a team, by the way, that as of today has won 8 games in a row and is half game back of the Lakers and the Clippers for first place in the Western Conference. And he had just dropped 36 points in a win. So the timing of it was all just really weird. When you think about, and we're now at the age where, the greats of our generation when we came up watching basketball are on their way out. Dwayne Wade has already retired. Right. We've obviously seen Kobe Bryant leave the game. And actually, the anniversary of his death is actually tomorrow.
Wow.
January 26th. Yeah. It's crazy how quickly that went by. So, of course, we miss players like him. Shaq is out of the league now. Dwayne Wade recently retired. Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kevin Durant. We're going to see these guys all leave the game in a couple years. And when you think about who's going to take the mantle, Donovan Mitchell is, if you're naming 5 guys, he's among those 5 guys. He's up there with maybe Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, Trae Young, Zion Williamson. That's it. Those are the guys that come to mind.
Right.
He is 24 years old, putting up career numbers this year, over 24 points a game, career average of 22 points a game. He's a young leader on an up-and-coming Jazz team. No one has had bad things to say about him in the locker room. He's a guy that can will his team to victory and is just an exceptional leader at the same time. And at the age of 24, that is really rare at the point guard position. So, yeah, just on top of it being really awkward and uncomfortable, it was wrong. So LeBron James, Kevin Durant, among the players to come to Mitchell's defense since, saying, why do we have these old heads still talking? Durant a little more critical, and it was pointed at Barkley as well, saying, why do we pay these idiots to have these opinions of theirs? So maybe a future in television isn't right for Durant, but we'll see.
He's honest. He's blunt.
Yeah. And then LeBron a little bit softer, but saying, there's a difference though between and Shaq sort of pivoted at the end there, saying, "I love your game, young fella."
Yeah, like that was the most confusing thing about it. Like you almost wonder if he was just like, maybe Shaq is, and I mean Shaq is not. He's been doing the panel thing for what, a few seasons
since
now?
he retired. He's been on there for a number of years now.
Okay, you'd think you would by this point learn how to formulate an interview question.
Right.
Like that wasn't even a question. That was just, I don't think you have what it takes.
Yeah.
What do you got to say about that?
Yeah.
Like, what are you cutting, a wrestling promo, or are you interviewing a basketball player?
Yeah.
Like, what's the guy supposed to say to that?
He loves reminding he loves reminding guys that he has 4 rings. And he's just, especially big men at his position, just has a hate on for them recently.
Yeah.
Mitchell's teammate, Gobert, just signed a big max deal before the season began. He's primarily known as a rim protector. He's one of the best defenders in the league, 2-time, I think, Defensive Player of the Year.
Well, he's primarily known as a super spreader.
That's true, too. Yeah. Well, that's how great of a defender he is. He stopped the whole league.
That's right.
For a couple months, that is. But so he was hating on Gobert recently because he averages something like 12 points a game. He's like, wow, that's what it takes in today's NBA to get a max contract if you average 12 a game. I was like, yeah, but he's also averaging 12 rebounds and is the best rim protector in the association. He is primarily a defensively minded player. So there are other aspects to the game, but of course he's thinking back to his day when he was dominating, and he did, and no one's going to take that away from him. But there's this level of hate towards these new generation players, and I can't make sense of it. And the Mitchell one is especially puzzling because he's a great young leader, and he's a really good basketball player.
Yeah,
leading a really good Utah Jazz team. So it was weird for a number of reasons, but one because it was completely wrong.
Well, in any event, Shaq is getting an earful about it, so hopefully that'll maybe make him take notice that it's like, oh, maybe I am just being ludicrous.
That wasn't really constructive criticism.
No.
That was a form of hating. It's like, let the young guy do what he does.
Yeah.
So you don't need to bring that into it.
We all remember you, Shaq.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah. It's not like you're irrelevant.
Yeah.
We all know who you are. Stop worrying about losing the spotlight.
Oh, just utterly bizarre. And then another story that came out this past week was, of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs former head coach, Mike Babcock, who was let go probably around this time last year, maybe a little over a year ago. And it was for several reasons. Number one being that the Toronto Maple Leafs were struggling mightily at this time, despite having one of the more talented rosters in the league. And there were other stories that came out, as you may recall, after he got let go. The most talked about being a incident with Mitch Marner in his rookie season, in which allegedly, he had pulled Mitch Marner aside and asked him to rank himself on a list compared to the other Toronto Maple Leafs players, who was the hardest working player as opposed to the laziest player. And Mitch, just doing what his coach asked him to do, wrote down his list and famously had Tyler Bozak listed as the laziest player.
That's right.
Mike Babcock then showed that list to Tyler Bozak. And people didn't like that too much.
Yeah.
A very manipulative type of move, especially when you have a vulnerable young rookie player then being put on the spot, and then you call out that young rookie player in front of a vet, just making things super awkward in the room. That came into the light after Mike Babcock's firing, and kind of shone a light on the character and just how he treated his players and how he Some said, said mentally abused.
Yeah.
And I think there's something legit to calling it that. And then you started hearing accounts from other players, one of the loudest being Johan Franz, and former Detroit Red Wing, who played under Mike Babcock, saying, not going into super great detail, but saying something to the effect of, he's a great coach, he's a terrible person.
Yeah.
And
he's a bully.
Yeah, a bully, exactly. And so these were things that really were being talked about quite a bit. A lot was being read into them, but Mike Babcock himself had been pretty tight-lipped on it until recently. He spoke to Pierre Lebrun, did a in-depth interview with The Athletic about these incidents, and I don't know if you've seen any of the reaction, Mike, from Mike Babcock, him talking about the incidents themselves. He addressed the Mitch Marner one, saying basically he made a mistake.
Yeah.
And he realized it as soon as he did it. And then after he had talked to Bozak and showed him the list, he then went to Mitch Marner and said, Mitch, I screwed up.
Yeah.
I did something that I realized I shouldn't have done right off the bat. Mitch Marner, I guess at the time, kind of brushed it off because you're a 19-year-old rookie. Like, what else are you going to do at that point, right? Like, so that was kind of awkward. And then he talked to Lou Lamoriello, who was the Toronto Maple Leafs general manager at the time, and Mark Hunter about what to do after that. Don't know exactly what came out of that conversation, but that was kind of his. Not his, he wasn't absolving himself of any wrongdoing, but that was kind of the explanation with regards to it, was that he did it and then realized immediately that he had made a mistake. So it's kind of interesting because a lot of people are thinking that this is coming out because he has recently taken a job with NBC.
That's right.
To be on their television panel. And so the thought is that maybe he's clearing the air to try and eliminate any type of elephant in the room before it actually gets there. Not so sure he accomplished that.
Well, to be fair, we hadn't heard his account of either of these stories before. They were reported, and then he sort of slid off into the unknown. We haven't heard from him for 12 to 14 months now since he was relieved by the Maple Leafs. This is the first that we've heard anything after that interview with LeBrun, offering some new details into those stories. It sounds like the one for me with the Maple Leafs one, and maybe it was just how I read it, not necessarily the way it was reported. It kind of seemed to me like the list was presented to the team.
Right.
When it seems like that wasn't the case, at least from his account. He did ask Marner to do it. Marner produced it. He did show it to Bozak. I think that's the extent of it. At least that's what he's saying. It's not like it was then presented to the team and Marner was thrown completely under the bus and it created this friction between him and Bozak. But he did acknowledge it happened, but I don't think it was necessarily shared with the entire team. And then with regards to the Franzen situation, it sounded like Babcock has tried on numerous occasions to reach out to him to clear the air because he didn't quite see the situation through the same lens that Franzen did. And if he has reached out to him, you would hope he would. Good on him for at least trying to make that connection. But yeah, the timing of it all does seem pretty convenient with him getting set to take over from Mike Milbury on NHL on NBC. But if he is really trying to make amends, good on him. I think that's incumbent upon him to do so. But yeah, the timing of it does seem pretty convenient with this new opportunity for him. And we'll see if potentially other coaching opportunities emerge for him as well. Yeah.
The interesting thing about this too, and what I'll be kind of, I don't know if hoping, but interested to see if more does come out, is the fact that, it's not like these are the only two clubs that Mike Babcock ever coached. He coached a lot of players in his NHL coaching career. Obviously, was with the Anaheim Ducks / Anaheim Mighty Ducks before that, took them to a Stanley Cup final. And so he's coached some pretty notable players like, Paul Correa, Teemu Solani, that entire Ducks squad had some really notable names on it. Scott Niedermayer.
All the personnel on Team Canada when he coached the Olympics.
Yeah, and exactly. And then, so that's kind of what I wonder is like, is there more to this? Is there a reason why it seems to be focused on these two players? Or, was he just an intense guy that just rubbed some, worse than others?
Yeah.
It's really, despite how the fact that, this interview kind of went in depth, I still have so many questions about it.
Yeah.
Obviously Johan Franzen doesn't owe it to anyone to go more into depth, if he has his thoughts and his feelings on Mike Babcock, but doesn't feel like going more into depth, then that's absolutely his business. But it is interesting to think about the number of players and not even just, young players. It's not like he's, was typically on teams that were filled with rookies and young players like, Patrick Marleau with Toronto Maple Leafs. So I'd love to hear what Patrick Marleau thought of him, in the twilight of his career, being coached by Mike Babcock. But there's obviously, with any coach, you treat some players differently than you treat others. That's just kind of the nature of dealing with humans and human emotions that differ from person to person. So either way, we'll be interested to see if anything more comes of that or not. But I think we're going to leave you for another episode of Cabin Sports Radio. Something on a bit of a brighter note with regards to hockey. The San Jose Sharks.
Yes. What a goal.
What a goal by Brent Burns last night. Here to leave you on this episode of Cabin Sports Radio is his fantastic description of scoring that goal. Have a great week.
Well, it starts Hurdle with a great draw. He wins it, and, these guys have blocked so many shots, and there's another one that they blocked. Luckily, it kind of stayed there, and I don't know what happened after that. I kind of blacked out, I think, but I just was kind of. I remember walking in a little bit and then just trying to throw a backhand in, and kind of felt like a weirdo. I think I was the only one in the building screaming there. I don't know if anybody else seen it go in or felt kind of weird.